Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining our very first Mogul Fireside. My name is Darrin Cook. I am CEO and founder of Mogul Media. And we're here with two incredible ladies. We have Jena Lynch with Donorbox, and we have Anna Cable. But before I give them a quick intro, if you are a nonprofit leader, you know all too well about the hamster wheel of grant chasing. It's very much of trying to get the deadline in. First of all, if you even have someone who can write your grants for you, a grant writer, that's a bonus. It costs money and resources. You don't even know if you're going to get it. So a lot of this hurry up and wait dancing, we're trying to go from scarcity to sustainability. So to join me with the two incredible ladies I have Anna Cable, who's the practitioner strategist with the Launchpad. Anna is in the trenches with us daily, figuring out this nonprofit world right now, navigating the challenges and learning how to navigate these rough waters. Then we have Jena Lynch, the system builder with Donorbox. Jena is an educator who has a deep, deep passion for teaching best practices for sustainable, repeatable growth and support for your nonprofit. And before you all chime in, I have to give a very special thank you to our sponsor, Donorbox, for partnering with us today for this fireside chat. Mogul Media, we're very passionate about turning digital chaos into clarity. And the folks at Donorbox, just like you, Jena, shares that exact same mission. They believe, just like we do, that nonprofits should never be held back by technical hurdles. So, ladies, how are you doing today? And thank you so much for joining me on my very first fireside.
What a pleasure here. We're just like biggest.
I appreciate that. No, it's mutual. I love that the fact that you all are doing. Every time I see you on LinkedIn, Jena, and in the community, and Anna, what you're doing with the Launchpad with women entrepreneurs is just amazing.
Yeah, girl power.
Yeah. And I see somebody hearted. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, do you want to say anything before we get right into it?
Over to you, Anna. Yeah, I don't want to get us going. Jena and I are talkers, so I don't want to derail us. I'm like, hold on, get us pointed in the right direction of what you want us talking about.
Okay, fair enough. So the two things we want to talk about today. Point one is the biggest hidden cost of focusing too much on grants, being too dependent on grants and going from a reactive culture instead of being proactive. And the second point of this discussion is going to talk about how does becoming too dependent on grants impact organizations, basically day-to-day operations and morale. So the first question to you, Anna, and kudos to you for your amazing work you're doing in the nonprofit community around the Launchpad of empowering female entrepreneurs. So walk us through the journey on focusing on what you do on a day-to-day and what is the Thrival Circles I'm hearing so much about?
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, as a kind of a level set with the audience, I have not figured it out. I do not know all the answers. I'm just willing to share. So I'm a strategist, and so I'm just willing to share. Here's the rationale behind all of the pivots that we're making so that you all can listen, analyze your own context, your own resources, and help you in a space that in the climate we're in, it feels like you're constantly hitting this wall with grants or funding, right? So then rather than feeling that you're only ever batting your head against a wall, I at least hope my intention is to share what we're learning, what we're testing out for you also to see, okay, this door is being closed, but is there a window cracked open here? Is there a potential other door here? How do you continue to see levers of agency that you have, even if the funding is cut off? So as Darrin mentioned, I run a nonprofit, what I'd like to call an adapted business incubator. For those that don't know business speak, it's a business coaching program for economically vulnerable women, priority focus on single mom entrepreneurs here local to Atlanta, with my nonprofit partner, Remerge. Just for clarity, the Launchpad's a program under Remerge, which does amazing work outside of just entrepreneurship too, all different work. And it has been a journey over the last couple of years, launching it in 2022 and launching the Launchpad. Just to be clear, Remerge has been around for much longer. Of going, how do we pay for this? Grants is one way. Can we test out can we test out earned revenue? Can we test out donations? individual donors? Do donors need something in return? And so let me just kind of quickly rattle off a couple of different funding models that we've tried and or might be trying right now, might be trying to revive. Because one thing I want to share with the audience, and I encourage people to think about, I had an old collaborator that used to call when we would do a project and we'd put it on the shelf. She would just call that like compost. Because sometimes that same way of thinking, that model wasn't ready to go at that time, and we might be able to revive it and or pivot it into the future. So like the value's not gone. So we have tested out, obviously, grants. And frankly, that's still our primary anchor. Individual donors of all sizes. So how do we incentivize high net worth donors? How do we incentivize small dollar donors? And that is some of where our support comes from. We've tried, okay, to get those individual donors, do we need to provide a shared experience? This is where we had an idea called the Thrival Circles, which in theory sound great. Thrival Circles are a community of women. As I already mentioned, we've got the Launchpad community of women, which is a small community, an intimate community of women entrepreneurs. Well, we thought, and in a certain economic strata, we thought, should we start another circle in a different economic strata that might be able to pay, say, $5,000 a year or $10,000 a year, and would we want to wrap some programming around it? Because maybe those donors also have needs. Their needs may not be economic empowerment, like that's one of the needs that the Launchpad women have, but maybe they have other needs for community, for learning about strategy in their giving, for learning about strategy in their own businesses. So we were just now reviving the Thrival Circles. We tried it about a year and a half ago. It didn't really take off. We came up with that idea because we had so many women outside of what we consider economically vulnerable that were interested in engaging with the Launchpad. And we thought, could that be a way to engage people and provide value? And then we had nobody sign up. So like very transparent, just because in the same way that like I might say, oh, I'm so interested in this. I don't know, let me call like a gym. And then the gym tells me what the monthly cost is for the gym. And I'm like, maybe I'm good to keep working out for free on the Beltline, completely fair, right? So now we're in a place of reviving that because we've had a renewed interest to go, maybe we need to think differently about how do we create value there and what are those tiers of price points. So that's Thrival Circle. Could we create another community of women and there we could build bridges between these two communities of women? We have also tried B2B. For those, again, that don't speak business, B2B is business to business. So if they have, oh, wow, my cat's going to join me. We're going to be really authentic. So business to business is if there's another nonprofit that also serves a similar constituent community, do they have a need for entrepreneurial support? So do they have, but then that runs into the issue with grants again.
Yes.
How do we get grants? How do they get funding? Do we do joint grants together? It's so difficult. So we were like, do we do a licensing model? So we were looking at other peers that serve communities and go, gosh, could there be something there? And then lastly, we just thought, is there in-kind support?
Yes.
That's helpful. How could in-kind support be leveraged? And so instead of taking and adding more money to our revenue, could we actually drop down our financial needs? So we're constantly in this journey right now. It really all centers on a combination of, I would say, strategic, which means that we're being intentional about going after things, but also a little bit organic and responsive to who are the people we're meeting, like what's flowing towards us. And it's always a dance between those two, to be honest, as far as, is it time to revive the Thrival Circle? Could that be good? Is it time to go after a grant again? Oh, we just met somebody and now we're building an authentic relationship. Now it could be a good time to go back after a grant. So there is a whole, I wrote down, it was like, there's a whole litany of strategies that we continually cycle back to in response to what our environment, or again, to use business language, because you all know I straddle the nonprofit and the business world, what our market is saying that the value that we provide is. So let me pause there, because then we can speak to different pieces.
And let me jump in. And Anna, I made a good note about that. We'll come back to this. And everything you said, you have my wheels turning. But I want to pass it to Jena. Just to piggyback on what Anna said, what are some of the key tools or systems supporters can use if they want to, give and help fundraise on behalf of an organization?
Yeah, yeah. And I'll backtrack a little bit too and kind of mirror what Anna shared. I do not know it all. I have lived some things. I have lived in some things I have learned from the organizations that we work with at Donorbox, right? And I just want to put that out there. We work with organizations from grassroots community groups all the way up to large organizations like the Malala Foundation, right? With managing multi-channels, and they really know what they're doing. And I think what really unites them is that they have a desire to build something sustainable.
Yes, yes,
And to have that system in place that supports growth without burning out their team or whatever that may be, right? And Anna, you've mentioned all the things already. Every single model that I've heard organizations talk about, you said them all just there. So there is no one size fits all. There is not really a true blueprint for any of this. Sorry, guys. But there are some things that you can reflect on and ask yourselves and give yourself the space and the time to step back and do some critical thinking about what models can not replace grants, right? But support and sustainability and whatever that means to your organization and your mission. So I'll get off my soapbox there. Darrin, ask me your question again.
Make sure. Yeah. So basically, and your response was amazing, Jena. I was asking, what are some tools or systems supporters can use if they want to give or fundraise on behalf of an organization? What are some tools that the organization leaders can use themselves?
Yeah. I've seen this dynamic when leaders started introducing even just like one stream of repeatable, flexible funding, like monthly giving, like earned income, like peer-to-peer. I am such a massive fan of peer-to-peer fundraising for organizations that are wearing, EDs that are wearing all of the hats. It is a low lift way to cast a wider net, get access to supporters for your organization that you may not all otherwise have, but so I'll start with peer-to-peer, right? It doesn't have to replace grants, but it does give you some breathing room. And what I like about this, it's not like, hey, raise money for us. It's be a part of something, have ownership in this mission, right? So sustainability in my mind is not just raising more money, it's creating this community of people who are advocating for your cause and have buy-in.
Yes.
Right? They're sharing a part of why your mission matters to them enough for them to take the time to raise funds for your organization. And that is something, I often say the day you plant the seed is not the day you eat the fruit. Peer-to-peer is a really great way to plant the seed, right? And nurture relationships long-term. So while, yes, I've seen wildly successful peer-to-peer fundraisers. I mean, you think about like the Ice Bucket Challenge. What was that, a decade ago? That was a peer-to-peer, right? You think about, there are plenty of peer-to-peers that have gone viral, right? And that's not always
life reaches, right? Like when people do, like when I do athletic competitions or something and we raise money. That's
exactly. Or we're coming up, I can't believe we're already talking about fall, like Movember, right? Everybody, the Mo Bros growing their mustaches. That is a peer-to-peer fundraiser. But what stands out about those is you have created a community. You got all these Mo Bros walking around in November with their mustaches. And that alone is a movement and visibility in your cause. So going back, sustainability isn't just raising funds. It's that recognition, that buy-in, right? That I think makes a big difference.
And Jena, and sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, but what you're saying is so good. But for the people who are listening and who may not be familiar even with peer-to-peer fundraising, can you just explain exactly what does that consist of? Does that mean like I'm a stakeholder with a nonprofit, I record a video and post? Like what does it consist of?
It can look a lot of different ways. So I will bring this back to what it looks like through Donorbox. So just as you would create a a campaign page with a set goal. Maybe that's $10,000. Maybe it's $100,000. Sometimes there's a deadline. Sometimes there isn't. That's what we call like a parent campaign.
Okay.
Right. And those pages are standalone fundraising pages. There's a button that says, I want to fundraise for this.
Okay. Okay.
It's a simple click, folks fill out, and then they get to create their own page.
Okay.
Fill out, they can add videos, pictures, a blurb about why it matters to them. And then they share that with their friends, their family on their social media. So it really is a parent page and then child pages that branch out from that. Right. What I will say there is you have to remember when launching a peer-to-peer, there is elbow grease that has to go in beforehand, because many of the folks who want to support your cause in this way, instead of just giving $30, they may have never been a fundraiser before. They may have never fundraised, right? So providing a toolkit or simple language or whatever that may be that they can copy and paste and share with their network so that your organization's mission is communicated in a clear, concise, and consistent way. Your brand is consistent, makes all the difference. So I hope that answered your question.
No, and I just I'm going to go back and give you back what you said just to make sure I'm following. So what I'm hearing is it's really easy for someone who may not be familiar with technology to set up a peer-to-peer campaign. They can go to Donorbox, and I know at the end we're going to put the resource in the chat, but they can go on Donorbox and they can create a simple landing page that will talk about Darrin's mission, saving the whatever it is in my campaign goal, and have it. Is it free to do? Is it a free trial? What's the cost besides the elbow grease and really getting out to promote it? How easy it is to set this up?
That is one thing about Donorbox. We strive to be accessible to all organizations, all shapes and sizes. We have a standard plan that is free to sign up, free to launch a campaign. And we do have platform fees, right? So once you start raising money, donors can opt to cover those platform fees, but you're not locked into a contract. There's no monthly commitment. You can create a campaign, experiment, make sure it looks right, you feel happy with it. So truly anybody can use it, and it's accessible to anybody.
Okay, no, that's good. And no, thank you for that. And now tag team back to you, Anna. So, and I made some really good notes. You all have my wheels turning. But with your Thrival Circles, the part that really surprised me was, of course, you all have stakeholders and you have people who are coming towards you, like you were talking about, the people who are flowing towards you. But one point you made up was you all, I know you're still in the trenches and it's not finalized, but tell me about the challenges you were facing when you decide to say, I'm going to charge. Because I know nonprofits, we all have big hearts and we want to save the world, including myself. But let's be honest, it costs money and resources to put on these things. So how do you even find a balance of, okay, I have this, I may have an expert person that I have to pay for to cover and teach this course or whatever it is activation. And I don't want my stakeholders to pay for it, and I don't want to water down my mission. So talk us about those things.
Yeah, money is such a sticking point for us. Because again, it's we're trying to be a launch pad for women who are economically vulnerable. And again, we use language like economic vulnerability, not low income, because vulnerability looks a lot of different ways.
Yes.
So, but this community, so Remerge also works with our homeless neighbors in the Sweet Auburn neighborhood. Okay, so the community of women I work with are not unhoused, right?
Okay.
So there are resources there too. So we're like, well, should we pay for this though? I don't know. So we've had a really interesting journey of how do we balance our values and also our own sustainability. Mm-hmm. So we have values of generosity too. And we have values of being very relational, not transactional. So something that we're piloting with this new cohort is, well, let me go back. The original bug got put in our ear by Launchpad participants themselves. Mm-hmm. That said, you should have an option to pay it forward, almost like a sisterhood for women. And I thought, okay, now that's a pretty big nod of confidence, I think, if we're providing a free program to a community of women and they're saying, we've gotten so much value out of this. Please let us be a part of paying it forward in some way.
Kudos to you.
Thank you. It's a slow build, and you've got to keep your eye on like who's the customer you're trying to serve, and be really diligent and open to that feedback. So we think we really nailed it as far as working with economically vulnerable women entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
But then it was like, well, what kind of model would we do? Would we do a sliding scale? How do you determine if someone's income is this to this? That for maybe those that have a traditional employment trajectory where you have a singular salary, it's pretty easy for you to tell me what your income is last year. That is really hard for some people. That is really hard for us as the program to determine. So how do we not threaten our value of relationality and holding a really safe, authentic relationship with people if then we're also trying to go, okay, well, if you make over, and I'm just going to pull numbers out of thin air, 40,000 per year, you don't have to pay for this. And it's, how do we ascertain that? So we were even having a hard time going, how would we implement a sliding scale, which to us felt that we could serve a women in a variety of ranges of economic vulnerability, but implementing that felt like it threatened some of our values of relationality and the purity of that. So where we've landed on this is actually, and some have seen cafes around the world that operate on donation based. We decided that, and we're testing this out, all transparent with this upcoming cohort. Launchpad is up to 4 phases. The first phase is the most intense. For most women, it's the most pivotal for their journey, and it's the most resource intense for us. We will continue to offer that for free. After that, we will transparently share with the women, here's how much that cost us to do this. Would you like to make a donation and pay it forward to join the next, to matriculate to the next phase? If that woman can donate $20, great. If that woman can donate $300, great. But also by that point, we will have had about 10 weeks or more of time of getting to know that woman, getting to know her economic situation. Get this, even getting to know psychologically, there are some people who are more givers than receivers, and that might not be in their own best interest.
Oh, wow.
Be able to suss out, just because you have a heart of generosity, which I love.
Yeah.
We're giving that all over the place. And by the way, nonprofit crowd that's listening, this is many of us. You are giving that all over the place, that actually, I don't want you to give us $300. I would be delighted if I want you to give us $25, because actually for your own, but we will have learned that, right? What is really in the best interest of that woman. And it's more about the spirit of paying it forward and of contributing to a community so that all women benefit. So this might be a tiny, tiny fraction of a line item on our revenue. But it's more about that spirit of everyone co-creating this together. And I think that that's a pretty powerful story. If I am talking about this to corporate sponsors, to potential philanthropic donors, to say this idea actually came from the women in the program, who say, we have money, we spend it all the time on food, getting our nails done, buying things are a priority to us. This is a priority to us. Let us help make sure that this is sustainable. So the same thing happened in our mastermind circles, which are these strategic kind of accelerating evenings that it's a curated invite list of women in the Launchpad and outside of it. And again, we used to put those on for free. And it was participants outside the Launchpad who were getting so much value out of the masterminds that said, could you please let us have a donation option? So we've chosen that our earned revenue model right now is going to be built on people feeling so full from the value that they get, which presumes that we are really smart and strategic about how we build that much value into masterminds. Are just 2-hour evenings.
Yeah.
Let's really nail the value and the structure of that they want to generously donate. But what that also does is it allows us to keep it, that basically offsets our food costs and some of our materials costs, and allows us to keep it, for those that are economically vulnerable, it allows us to keep that free. So that's where we are right now in just thinking through, in our unique situation, right? Because ours is such a tight relationship within these small cohorts, that adding money into that felt very vulnerable for us. And so it took some really grappling with, where do we find that sweet spot of, and it could be that in the future, we start offering the Launchpad in a paid version to women that are in a certain economic strata who could pay for it. It could be that we diversify that way, but we didn't want to take our eye off of our target community, because trust me, there are more than enough economically vulnerable women in Atlanta who are banging, talented entrepreneurs, whether they identify that way or not. They are out there hustling, that we didn't want to stray from that, just to go up the economic spectrum for financial reasons. So we want to stay there and then figure out how to keep playing with the financial model there.
And I'd love to chime in if you don't mind.
Please.
I think this is such an important pivot, right? Like you said, Anna, it can feel risky or vulnerable when your work has always been free or donation-based or whatever that is, right? But I want to reaffirm folks who are listening, just because you are charging for something doesn't mean that you are abandoning your values, right? And honestly, I've seen shifts like this create more connection, not less, because when people invest even a little bit of money into an experience, they tend to show up more fully. They pay attention and they feel like a participant, not just a recipient, right? And I think that's the part of it. And you're not really saying we're charging for this now, right? You're saying we're offering something valuable and we're trusting our community to recognize that. And you can still provide scholarships or sliding scales or pay what you can options. And plenty of works do this and they do it well. I talked to an organization recently, and they launched a membership model where clients could pay what they can for professional development, right? As workshops around a particular topic. They were doing it for free for a long time, but times are what they are. And they told me that about 40% of the folks who signed up for the courses chose to pay the suggested rate or more, while others opted for a lower tier. Now, nobody was turned away, which is great, but everyone felt like a partner and not a recipient. And I think that's the difference when you frame it as we're building something with our community. I think that tends to resonate even with the biggest skeptics.
No, I think, and I made some notes too. This is like Sunday school for me. Anna, you said something that was so good. You said, how do we balance our values versus sustainability, which was so good, because that's so important. And I know just from my own research and being in the trenches, a nonprofit is afraid to charge because they feel like they're going to alienate their base and supporters. So it's just like, how do I keep the lights on? How do I do these amazing things? But it's not cheap. And one thing I'm going to just mess with you, Anna, even if you have a salary and a set income, with the way these inflation and everything is with these tariffs, that's still not enough. So I may know what my income is with my W-2, salary, but every dollar is vital right now.
Can I add one? Can I throw one variable?
Please.
Because
absolutely.
I don't think that's like some people hear that. Yeah, how do we balance our values and our sustainability? And there's other people, right, that grapple with that. I feel like I want to throw one variable in that we have pulled, one lever we have pulled at Remerge, that I want to remind the nonprofit workers out there that they can pull. So we've scaled back programming in response to funding. So I did 2 cohorts in 2023 very successfully. In 2024, we did 1 cohort. Why? It was primarily a capacity and a financial decision. We did not have the capacity. Now, rather than rev forward, we were already running at max of what we could financially do. So rather than but for nonprofit leaders, I think what that makes us confront inside of ourselves is either fears of our own, and so for some of us, it's not even conscious, fears of our own sense of failure. Because you better believe I have a wait list for the Launchpad. I'm staring at that wait list going, can't do it. And rather than, just stiffly saying we don't have the finances, I leveled with them as a woman entrepreneur myself and said, I would love to be able to do this. This now threatens my economic stability because it is going to threaten my capacity to hold down other projects that I have going on that also, by the way, offset the salary from Remerge because of the financial constraints we're in. So we have played with these levers of, can we scale back programming? Can we scale back the amount of time that we're investing in this particular arm so that in a year from now, we don't burn out and we have to shut the whole thing down? Can we play the long game? And I think that that's a really hard internally within myself as a nonprofit leader, that's a hard thing to look at your wait list because trust me, there's always perpetually going to be more need. Whatever you do that helps the world, there is always going to be more need than you're able to fill. So that goes on inside of our hearts, our psyches, as nonprofit, not even nonprofit, by the way. I think this is just a human compassion. But then what we also had to confront was, well, externally, are we concerned about how people will perceive that? Right? Have we, and so, for example, we wrote in grant proposals, we hope to be able to do 3 cohorts that year. Well, if we couldn't, then how can we not lose that relationship, but actually show transparently, you know what, we didn't make it to 3 cohorts. This is why. We have been incredibly good financial stewards. We didn't fundraise the level that is appropriate. And so instead of threatening the money that we did have and being poor stewards of that because we spread it too thin, we have we let people in transparently into our leadership, into our strategic thinking. And I think that transparency externally has allowed us to ebb and flow with what some people may feel concerned perceptions are if they pull that lever, which says, I need to pause this program, or I need to scale back some of this program, or we can't do an 11-person cohort. We need to do a 5 or 6 person, right? And so actually the transparency has allowed us to build, I think, more trust and therefore more magnetism to our program because we're willing to be very transparent like that.
I love that. Jena, do you want to say anything before I jump in?
I just love that reflection and transparency. I think sometimes you got to step back and ask yourself, what's draining your energy and not necessarily fueling your mission, right? I think that we can get stuck in cycles, right, of things that should be bringing in numbers, but now are taking a lot of time and talent and money, and it can diminish that return, right? And if you're being honest with yourself, you need to ask yourself, is it still worth the effort, or has the landscape changed? And I think it's just recognizing that it's okay to step back and let go of what's taking energy away from things that you can do really well. I think it's hard to admit sometimes, but it frees up space for things that actually move you forward, right? So I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Yeah, no, and I was just going to say too, just really quick, Anna, what you said was basically just having good boundaries, and the fact that you've been able to pivot, just like anything in life, you have to pivot often, pivot quickly. And just even the mindset I admire that you have, that, your funding may have been over the moon one year and then next year is no funding. But instead of you saying, I'm going to treat it like a defeat and I can't do all of these cohorts and these amazing things, I'm going to still, scale it back and still make a huge impact. So I think that's amazing what you're saying too.
Thank you. Yeah. It's just, I just want to be really transparent with people. Those are hard decisions.
Yeah.
Those are hard decisions in yourself. Those are hard decisions with your own sense of value to the world. Or, I wish really great therapists for everyone. You daring to set boundaries. And I'm like, that is a hard fought process.
Yes. Okay. We're all living it.
Oh, I'm kind of getting it. Okay. I'm kind of getting some good boundaries here. Yeah, it's extremely difficult. And I think that transparency, when we typically talk about grant making and fundraising, it's all relationship based, right? So that transparency of here's how we strategically navigate, I do think over time builds authentic relationships with potential corporate funders or philanthropic funders because they know how we're going to use their money now. You have watched how I make decisions, about where we invest finances. So just really trying to play the long game, but your own sustainability long game too.
No, and absolutely. And just to piggyback on what you're saying, Anna, I didn't mean to cut you off, was if somebody's saying, if Anna can do these amazing things with Launchpad with a fraction, when she gets the huge budget, oh my God, what are you going to do?
I mean, I hope high corporate spot, hat maker.
We're putting out in the atmosphere. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
I mean, that's the goal. The beautiful thing I'll say is I work with economically vulnerable women entrepreneurs. Our program is an economically vulnerable entity, right? So there is a lot of relating to the women and how they're having to solve problems within their business that we at Remerge are having to solve problems within ours. So there's also like an educational component of, ladies, here's how I'm trying to solve these things because I, like you, I can't hire somebody. I can't pay for that beautiful CRM. What are we doing with the free tools that we have? How can we work smarter and more efficiently? So it has actually been kind of a beautiful way of connecting to the women that we work with, in that we're all trying to solve each other's problems.
Yes. And just for sake of time, I would love to pivot to a new discussion point. If we can talk a little bit about resource sharing, because I know nonprofits, we've been talking about grants and we all need grants to survive. But I think we're sitting on so many other resources that's not monetary, that can be bartering or any other type of partnership. So, Anne, if you want to just give us examples about how a nonprofit leader can partner with an organization where it may be a win-win for the nonprofit and that other organization besides just money.
Yeah. The main thing I will say is, and I'll rattle off a couple of specifics, but listen for what's the incentive that brings someone and or their resource to the table. So a couple of different things. And then that's where you're going to figure out where there's that win-win value exchange.
Okay.
For example, we help women within the Launchpad. If someone's like really great with one skill set or has this resource, how can we create a win-win barter? And by the way, there is now a tech-enabled platform. I think it's called Barter Black. It's specifically for Black entrepreneurs to help codify some of what we just do relationally. Do you need marketing services? And you have really good administrative services. So they're trying to do this on a broader scale.
The Water Black.
So there's value exchange relationships of skill sets or resources that we do. There's collective bargaining power, meaning we had a number of people that needed headshots. Hey, photographers, by the way, also small businesses. To make it incentivized for that gentleman to come and do headshots, he needed at least a certain financial level. That couldn't be paid by any of the women. But we said, well, you know what? We're going to do a mastermind anyways. Who wants to sign up for headshots for $25? We'll do some micro headshots. So where do you have collective bargaining power to either share, like you all get this, but you can consolidate it so it makes it worthwhile for that photographer to come. Or same goes for you want to vend at this market. Can we collectively get together and pitch the person who does that market, who, by the way, is trying to get people to buy tables and say, hey, if I bring you 5 entrepreneurs to do tables, instead of $75 a table, could you do 20? Or could you do $50 a table? Because I'm going to fill up your market right now. So collective bargaining is one way. Physical shared resources. We have space at Remerge that the women in Launchpad can leverage and use for free as they test out new workshop ideas or new services. So where can we look around and see, you know what? My church has this extra classroom that doesn't get used on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Could that be a space? So we really get pretty creative in how can we look around and see other relationships. And most of these come from relationships, so from leveraging social capital. And I already mentioned the masterminds very briefly, but that is a huge way that we've helped people build relationships and create more what we call relational wealth, because you could hire a lawyer to look over that agreement, or somebody who has a sister who's a lawyer who's willing to look over that agreement for you. You just saved that $150. If you have a friend that has that church with that extra space who will let you do and test out your event there for free, then you've just saved that money. But those come from curating more and more diverse relationships that are authentic, where people are coming to this space with generosity, going, how can we mutually help each other make this happen? And if money is not a currency on the table, then what relationships do we have? So,
And
creativity.
Jena, thank you, Anna. I think that was spot on. I'm glad you hit on the fact of the social capital and how to leverage other resources besides just dollars. And Jena, to passing on to you, how would a nonprofit leader track the non-monetary value exchange partnerships? How would they track and keep, an idea of what's coming in and what's going out?
Yeah. And I'll say I love this topic because it really invites folks to look at abundance.
Absolutely. That's the word.
Right. Not all value comes from a check. And honestly, some of the most impactful partnerships I've seen involve skills or space or services, like Anna said, right? And I think there's a couple of different models here, right? There's B2B, like as a nonprofit to nonprofit, and then there's B2B, nonprofit to business. And those models work in great ways. So I'll add, and then we can talk a little bit about like the technical stuff, which really isn't a one size fits all.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say the theme here, right, is relationships. I think in order to consider starting something like this, you want to reach out with curiosity, not a pitch first.
Love that. Love it.
Right. I would say some success that I've seen in roles that I've had at nonprofits is I've reached out to other nonprofits that I know were serving in a similar lane, right? Community is more important now than ever. And that may be, I worked for a DV shelter for a while in Atlanta, and that's okay. Looking at the food pantries here or whatever that may be, and seeing where there's a need and how we can partner and in that way, right? So finding aligned values, especially with nonprofits, that's easy. There's so much, especially here in Atlanta, but everywhere where there is a lot of overlap and alignment. And then also for corporate partners too, right? Have you looked at their CSR programs and see where their values are and where they want to serve? And that can be amazingly beneficial, right? To just meet and start with curiosity and understand what their needs are, what their requirements are, and finding ways, like you said, to share that, that space, those skills, those services. And I would treat those partners like any other supporter, any other major donor, right? That means stewarding them, tracking what they provide, whether that's pro bono accounting or discounted printing or donating equipment or sharing. A graphic designer, I've done that before as well.
Right? Legal, marketing help, absolutely. Accounting help.
Right. Yeah. And it's finding a way to recognize that contribution internally. I think that these things we get in these systems, right, where we recognize our board, our volunteers, our donors, or in-kind donations. Well, I managed in-kind donations for a long time, but this partnership piece can kind of get lost in the mix of all the data and the donor bases. And it's whatever system you're using. Hopefully you're using a CRM or a spreadsheet. This is a judgment-free zone here, right? Whatever you're using, create a profile for that partner, for that organization, right? And that should include what they're providing or what you're exchanging, an estimate on that value if you can, right? And of course, there are things that may not really have a value, but the best that you can, any contacts within that partnership organization, right? Dates, like, you should come at these things with a contract, just like anything else. Are we doing this we sharing this person once a month? Are you lending me your space once a quarter? But so important dates, renewals, thank you moments, and just any notes about the relationship or history that you've already had, right? It doesn't have to be fancy. It just needs to be intentional. I'm using this word a lot lately, intentional, and I think it can encompass a lot of things. But if you're juggling all the things or you're juggling multiple partnerships, maybe 3 of them are in kind, or it's really easy for those contributions to go unrecognized. And over time, that erodes goodwill. And that's exactly the opposite of what we want to do when this really is a partnership. And I'll add, I've seen some organizations do this so well, and not something I ever thought of when I was in this role. You can even create like a partnership gratitude report
I love that.
at the end of the year, or whatever cadence makes sense for you, right? Even if it's just the one partner or multiple partners, it could include, the financial and in-kind partners, photos, testimonials, a breakdown of impact, a statement from both, CEOs or whatever that looks like. And like, sure, this kind of thing takes a little extra effort. It's just, impact reports are not the easiest thing to put together all the time, but it really is just this awesome stewardship piece that could turn partners, especially corporate partners, into financial supporters down the line when they're more able to, right? So I would say the systems that you're asking about, it's not just about logging data. It's about building that long-term trust, right? And the visibility around the full ecosystem of support,
And I have something, but for an impact report, I have to give a plug to Grace Nelson with Magenta Strategy. She's amazing. So if you need it, we'll put a resource. Grace Nelson with Magenta, she does amazing impact report. But we have a question from the community. Where is it? So the first question is, and we gave amazing advice and all of this about leveraging a social capital. People want to know, how do we approach a corporate partner if I'm just starting out and I'm just a small nonprofit? How do I go up to these big guys and say, hey, I have a cool mission? What's the first step?
I'm happy to share a bunch of things I've tried.
Please.
Like all relationships. Okay. It doesn't feel good. Jena, I wrote down and by the way, I just noticed I was writing with a Donorbox.
Look at that.
I'm very tactile, so I'll write things as you say them. But when you said come to understand, not pitch. So it doesn't feel good as a human to just get pitched to all the time. So I don't care if you're a well-intentioned nonprofit person that's coming to some employee, because that's still a person on the other side there. But you need to look for what are the incentives? What does that company stand for? What are they interested in? And where do you have entree to start build a relationship with them? So, for example, do you know any of their employees? Can you come to any of their employees from a place of wanting to understand, hey, how does your company do community engagement? So before you even work yourself up to pitch anything, and by the way, spend all that time, because all that time is being built on assumptions of what you think they need.
Yes.
Can you find anywhere to have a conversation? Because in that one conversation, you might realize, you know what? I got no chance anyways. They're only funding organizations that have this kind of track record. And you also look for other organizations that feel like your peers. We don't all have to go to the big Fortune 500 companies. There are a lot of mid-sized companies, and this is an area that I'm starting to explore here, is that mine's a really small program. Maybe the big, huge companies want more exposure, so they might want to fund a bigger program. And I could understand that. They need visibility for marketing too. So if mine's a small, intimate program, maybe I should look at some of the other women-founded mid-sized businesses here in Atlanta, the construction companies, the background check companies, the realtor firms, these wonderful, successful mid-sized businesses. And maybe if they're led by a woman or founded by a woman, or even better, a single mom, you might really appreciate how I run my program. Right now, that's maybe not $100,000 check from big guy, but that's a really meaningful relationship. So I'm also I'm listening for the companies, not just putting them on a pedestal. I'm genuinely listening for what their needs are and where does a friendship feel aligned. And I'm trying to do that in a way before I write all of these pitch decks. I mean, I have some talking points organized, but I don't want to invest a bunch of effort to go pitch people, which doesn't really always feel very good, So try to start talking to people. And you typically start with who's in your circle, who goes to your church, who are the parents of kids at your school, and where can that be a low risk conversation for that person to also enter the conversation with you to actually learn, could that be a potential? Is that a safe space for that employee to tell you what really goes on in their company, and is it worth pursuing?
Love that. So starting your own backyard, starting your own community. You don't necessarily have to start at Coca-Cola or Delta Airlines.
You can, by all means, if you've got time, go apply to all of those people that put out public grants. Absolutely. I'm not saying don't apply for those. It's just also realize that those big guys, everybody is also looking to them.
That's
so
very
if you're
true.
10,000 applicants and I'm a tiny new nonprofit, what is going to make me stand out in that applicant pool? So before I spend 20 hours on that application, I might try to spend an hour looking around going, do I know anybody that works at Coca-Cola that I could ask? Hey, have you ever seen, do you guys have any idea? And start doing some of that to see if that 20 hours of investment is even worth it.
No, I love that, Anna. Jena, pass it to you before we go into quick takeaways. Do you want to chime in?
What you said was spot on. I'd say finding someone within those big companies, like you said, is a great tip. I had a lot of success with Panera. They have an end of day donation program. So when I was working with the DV shelter, every Tuesday and Thursday, 10 o'clock at night, I would drive there and my car, my little sedan, would be filled with loaves of bread. I mean, I never smelt like anything but bakery items, but it's one of those things you have to apply for, right? There's a lot of need, and especially this was during COVID, right? There was a lot of need. I started from the inside out, right? So I do prefer those one-on-one relational, who do you know tactics. But if you are trying to get in with those bigger companies and corporations, it's, it can work too. But definitely start with what you have, right? Start with your circle. You don't need to reinvent anything. Just, come at it with a sense of humility and curiosity, and I think you're good. So.
Well, I love that. Well, thank you, ladies. We're almost at the end of it. But before we wrap up with all of this amazing advice, and I have so many notes just for my own self, my own nonprofit, give our audience just some quick takeaways, something that's a golden nugget that they can remember on their own journey. I want to start with you, Jena, first, and then I'll go with Anna.
Oh, sure. Okay, putting me on the spot a little bit here.
Just a little.
I'd say if there's one thing to leave you with, I'd say that sustainability isn't something you finally arrive at, right? It is something that you practice. This is something that you practice. It's in the way that you design your donor journey. It's the way that you communicate with intention. Anna talked a lot about how she communicates with her community and her stakeholders and the people within that. And it's the way that you build systems to support your team too, instead of exhausting them, right? Stepping back and asking those questions. What's draining my energy instead of fueling our mission? Or what am I doing out of fear, not strategy, right? You do not need to do everything. I think we've talked a lot about a lot of different things here, right? But you do need to do the right things with consistency and with care. So as far as like next steps in my mind, it's really to create space, block some time in your calendar, hold yourself accountable, give yourself the permission to take an hour this week or next week, right? Because we're at the end of the week, to just think.
Yes.
Think critically. Ask yourself those hard questions. What's working really well that I, could double down on? What am I offering that is no longer serving our mission, but I'm doing it because it's the way we've always done it. Are there people in my community, organizations in my community that are aligned with ours that are also struggling in similar ways? So just ask yourself the hard questions, commit yourself to an hour next week. Turn off your notifications or join some folks from your team, bring out your notepad, and just, give yourself the space.
Love that. Anna? Your
That-
turn.
That actually aligns perfectly. So I was like, ooh, okay, I've got a sentence for you to journal on.
Yeah.
So my nugget was going to be, keep your eye on what is your unique value proposition. And again, I know it is this language. So what is the thing, and it could be like two things, but what is the thing that you nail and for who? And that is a journey in and of itself to find that. So there's a sentence we use in the program with the women entrepreneurs. So it's, we provide blank, what's your product or service, to blank, who's your target community, target beneficiary, so that they can, what's the value?
Yes.
Now, that seems like an easy sentence. The tighter, the more tangible, the more crisp, it's actually harder to write one sentence than it is to write a whole paragraph.
Wow.
Here, you can write that sentence and then share it with 10 other people in your world and go, do you know what this sentence means? Because let me tell you, we provide business coaching to economically vulnerable women entrepreneurs. By the way, someone will go, what do you mean by business coaching? This organization does it. This organization does it. This organization does it. It's extremely hard to actually get tangible, concrete. We provide support too. We provide coaching. These are ambiguous words, actually. Everyone pictures different in their brain.
Yes.
So I would say keep your eye on and ask for people to mirror back to you and help you see yourself on what is that value proposition that you do, because the grants you go after, the revenue generating strategies, the way that you might be able to monetize that, the more that you know what you nail and you have feedback from your audience that you nail that, the better you'll be able to build strategies around partnerships. It becomes like a tuning fork inside of me. So like Jena, when you were talking about, could this work? Could this work? It keeps me from ever straying because there's this like internal frequency for those that are musical, like a tuning fork inside, because I'm so clear on like, okay, this is exactly what we do. So if someone says, could we monetize this? And I'm like, we could, but that feels like it's veering off of that. I'm like, nope. And I'm looking for corporate partners. I'm looking for, when we do a thrival circle, I'm looking for women that somehow integrate with that frequency. So that becomes your building block for how you might monetize and how you might find people who are incentivized to make that value expand in the world. So that might be a good starting point. And
100%.
we can't see ourselves. So that's why I said, do your best attempt at that sentence. And or if you serve multiple communities, then write a sentence for each community that you serve, but then go share it with at least 10 people. Even better if they're from your target community, from your target beneficiaries. They're the ones that are going to help you see yourself.
No, and I think what you all said was spot on, Jena, what you said, and Anna, what you said also. I think for me, my final takeaway for the audience, and please bear with us. I know we're at time. We're going to wrap it up shortly, but this is just so good. I think I just want to tell people to not be afraid to try something new. I think we're all exploring new ways of just doing life and doing business and growing our impact. And just because it may be unfamiliar does not mean you're doing it wrong. So, step out there. If you want different results, you have to do something different. And I think I'm a strong believer, just like you, Jena, having the abundance mindset. When you do the first steps, your people will come along.